So I'm very excited to be doing the first Q&A on Instagram and Facebook. I really appreciate everyone who's sent in some questions, and hopefully we can do this on a regular basis and answer many more questions. So the first question, Emmy asks, how do you best toilet train a puppy? So the answer to that question lies in one of the ways that puppies learn, and that is they learn best with low anxiety and proactive behaviour. So let me explain that. If you have a puppy that does a wee inside and you rouse on it, that's a high anxiety situation and the puppy is unlikely to learn. So the best thing to do with puppies is to decide that some part of the yard is the best spot to go to the toilet. They want to go to the toilet when they first get up, and they want to go to the toilet after they've had something to eat. So the best thing to do is when you first get up in the morning, take them down the back, stand next to them, look at them, make sure you've got a couple of treats in your pocket, and tell them to go to the toilet. And the first probably 4 or 5 times you do it, nothing's going to happen. But one of those times, the puppy will go to the toilet. What you do then is make sure that you use a high-pitched voice. Puppies respond positively to that high-pitched voice. It reminds them of their mother telling them that things are good. And so they identify really positively with it. And you give them a treat at the same time. One of the little dried liver treats we like to use in Jacinta's puppy preschool, which I just will give a quick side plug. A lot of these questions about puppies are best answered in the context of a puppy preschool course. Jacinta does a great job with this, and I just can't plug it enough for these sorts of things. Emmy has a supplemental question. What food is best to ensure optimal health for a puppy and then into adulthood? So let me start at the beginning. Dogs have become the companions of humans for 2 main reasons. The first one is that we share a very similar social structure, so we can adapt to each other's company relatively easily. The second thing is dogs live off the scraps of humans really well. So when we were cave people, the dogs would hang around the edge and live off our scraps. And then eventually the dogs became domesticated and spent all their time with people. Now, in the modern situation, the best thing that you can do to feed a dog is to keep it simple. The more complicated you make it, the more likely it is to break down in the future. The second thing is that for most dogs, the best thing you can do is to provide a good, high quality, commercial, super premium dry food, selection of ancillary treats, or good quality healthy human food that's not spicy or fatty as the additions to the diet. There are exceptions. There are individual dogs who will have sensitivities to some components of the food, and their diets will need to be tailored. There are some dogs who have disease processes, urinary tract problems, kidney problems, and there are special diets which will help with those. Next question. Gabby Live asks, what are my thoughts on desexing Rottweilers when they are 1-year-old instead of 6 months to reduce the risk of cancer? This is a very insightful question, Gabby, and I know you've had personal experience with a beautiful Rottweiler passing away that had bone cancer. There is scientific evidence to suggest that if desexed younger than about a year, the hormones that come from the gonads that are removed during desexing, those hormones, testosterone and estrogen, have an effect on the shape and development of the bones, and that a small percentage of those dogs that are desexed at 6 months of age are more likely, by a fraction of a percent, to get a condition called osteosarcoma, a bone cancer. And there is clear evidence that those hormonal changes play an effect in the development of that tumour. The problem for me as a veterinarian to make a recommendation that we desex those dogs later is that, like many medical situations, it's multifactorial. There's not just that tumour that we're dealing with. We're also dealing with other health issues. And to leave them longer with testosterone, say if we're dealing with a male dog, that will mean that they're more likely to be exposed to prostate disease. So leaving them entire for a longer period of time may lead to the fact that they have decreased risk for one tumour and increased risk for another one. So I think the absolute answer is it better to wait till they're a little bit older. The jury's still out on that one, and what we try to do here at the Sugarloaf Animal Hospital is talk to people about those competing risks and make a decision that's suitable. Okay, Ruby the Ragdoll asks, do cats need their teeth cleaned or will their food keep them nice and healthy? Ruby, this is once again really an excellent question. So, why do we clean cats' teeth? We clean them because they have dental disease. They have, cats and dogs and humans for that matter, if their teeth are not cared for properly, they will develop a layer of plaque on the teeth. To clean the teeth, and the rate at which teeth are cleaned depends on the individual animal. So the short answer to your question is that food will help some animals, won't help other animals, and each individual cat will need to have a determination made about whether it needs dental care or not. Okay, the next one is Nelia82 asks, neutering male ferrets seems to be a big topic amongst ferret owners at the moment. Is there scientific evidence to suggest neutering too early increases the risk of adrenal disease and other complications in ferrets? If so, do the benefits of neutering outweigh the risks? We love to see our ferrets. They are really prone to a number of diseases as they age, and one of those is adrenal disease. Ferrets can develop testosterone or estrogen secreting tumours of the adrenal gland, and that causes a whole cascade of health issues. So we really work hard to try and identify the factors that are going to cause adrenal disease. Now, many ferrets, particularly in the US, are desexed at a very young age. They might be desexed at 4 or 5 weeks of age. And there is a lot of evidence now, a lot of solid scientific evidence, particularly out of Europe, that shows that ferrets that are desexed at that age are markedly more likely to develop adrenal disease. There is no evidence at this stage that desexing them later than about 6 or 7 months makes any difference to that pattern. So once we get them to puberty, the protective effects of leaving the gonads there wane away to almost zero as far as adrenal disease is concerned. So our recommendation, based on that excellent research by Nico Shoemaker in Europe, is to desex them pretty much as they get to 6 months. That gives them the exposure to the sex hormones that minimises the chance of adrenal disease, and it prevents us getting to a little bit older when those sex hormones can cause us other problems. So, last question for today is from GG161. What are some tips with dealing with a dog that stresses too much and never sits still? Well, there's several things to say about this topic. The first one is that behaviour is really important. We see a huge number of animals whose main problem with quality of life is that they are anxious and upset and worried about things. So dealing with these sorts of issues is really, really important. The second thing is that you need to start when they're young. That you can teach an old dog new tricks, that can happen. It just takes much longer. Pups are sponges. They want to learn things. So if you can start working with your dog's anxieties when they're a pup, they often end up being far less of a problem. Training dogs takes a huge part of the anxiety, the worry about the world away from them. And it gives you a tool to apply to them in the specific instances when they are anxious. So I always think that it's a great thing to keep it simple and just sit, stay, drop, simple commands, give them liver treats till they learn those things. Once they have them under their belt, then they're the things to do when they're anxious. So let's have an example. Let's say that we've got a dog that's anxious around other dogs. What I would suggest people do is that they get one of their mates, go to the park with their mate's dog, start at opposite ends of the football field and walk together. Soon as the dogs start to become alert with their ears up and paying attention to the other dog, that's when you stop, you take a step back. That decreases the intensity of the anxiety generating event, and then you do a series of sit, stay, drop routines. You've got to have the dogs on the lead so you've got them under control, and you've got to have liver treats in your pocket so you can draw their attention away from the other dog. But get them to do that and then walk home. To a dog, that's an exciting thing, that's a positive thing. And if you can do that, once or twice a week, you'll find that in only 3 or 4 weeks you can move much, much closer to another dog without generating that anxiety in your dog. Look, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to send these questions in. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to communicate great information about pets to a much broader audience, not just tied to our consult room. But if you've got any other questions, call the hospital, and I'll talk to you next time we do our Q&A.